Welcome to the Copy Talk podcast. Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer member, FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Financial planning services through Lighthouse Financial, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Shannon Ross is CEO and managing partner of Lighthouse Financial. Lighthouse and Cambridge are not affiliated. And now, here's your host, Shannon Ross.
Happy Thursday, everyone. We're getting closer and closer to summer. Welcome to Copy Talk.
Morning.
You need to switch to podcast mode right now. You're in work mode right now.
Did you just
you're more happy.
me? I've been
We need happy vibes. Happy vibes. You look like Captain America.
Do you think that was going to give me a
hat.
happy vibe? I wore this hat for you today.
I love that hat. It is like Captain America hat.
It's been a little bit of a chaotic morning.
I know.
I've got
I hate
finals
this
and
for you.
my kids got nosebleeds and there's work stuff going on. And I'm just.
It all comes at once on Thursday mornings.
Yeah.
On your way here.
Well, it was all morning. It wasn't just on the way here. That's
know.
okay.
It's
I'm
all
in
right.
podcast mode.
It's life.
It's life.
But you look pretty.
Thanks.
I found my gold pen. Remember, I thought I lost
you
it. It's
had
my
it last
favorite
week.
pen, and I didn't have it last week, and I was
Oh.
very sad. So I spent some time, and I found it.
You spent some time finding it.
It's a very important pen to me.
Oh, it is it?
So,
Just because it's
yes.
gold? Because I would have bought you a gold
I don't
pen.
know. I think it's just I love how it writes. You know, everyone has a favorite
I'm a
pen,
pen snob.
and then you have like people who try to steal your pens.
Mhm.
My kids always do that to me,
Oh.
or work people.
Oh,
Not
I'm a
you,
pen
but-
snob. There's certain pens I will not write with.
But hey, we are just a couple weeks away from summer.
I'm just living for tomorrow.
Yeah,
Let's just get to tomorrow. And it's the PGA Championship.
Yay.
You know, I get
and you'll
excited
have
about
all weekend
sports.
because if you live in Colorado, often, most years, you get a blizzard at the end of May. So more years than I can remember, we've had snow days the last week of school for kids. And this week is no exception. So you should go to the grocery store and get all your stuff so you can watch the golf tournament while we're snowed in.
We're getting
So.
all of our groceries today because the weekend's gonna stink. But yes,
Yep.
Tiger's playing. He was paired
saw
with
that.
Rory and Jordan Spieth this morning. I don't know
Yep.
where he's at right now, but he got a birdie on 10, which is where he started at in the back
Yeah.
nine. So yeah, it was good for that. And I did wear this for. Do you know where he's at? You gave me a look. No. He's at 2 over?
Well, he's there. He's, watch that man walk in it. I hurt when I watch him walk.
Where's he at right now? Is he on the back? Is he on the front nine yet? Okay.
So what is the hat?
Okay, so I know you love Texas and you're about to go to Texas, and
That's
so
right.
I wore this for you. But I also wore it because the Mavs are still in the playoffs.
Oh, I know.
They're
We
playing
watched last
the
night.
Golden
Didn't
State
go so well,
Warriors
but
right
yeah.
now. They lost last night.
Luka didn't have a good game.
No.
If he's out or hurt, then they're
Well,
done.
He
but
kept grabbing his shoulder. I don't know what all that's about. You know what that's about?
and that
sport, man?
nasty scratch on his face.
Oh,
was
he got
sad.
scratched.
Oh, yeah. So
So yeah, he
Yeah.
hopefully is game 2 tonight. I didn't even look.
no, because game 1 was last night. So
They don't ever play 2 nights in a row.
no,
It's not like baseball, huh?
it's really not going to be a good day for you.
I'm going home, going to bed. And Tigers 2 over. The Mavs don't play tonight.
I know.
But I wore this in support of the Mavs because they're
wonderful.
a Texas team.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
it was twofold. for
Good.
that. Yes.
Well, good.
Yes.
Good. Well, I think you'll benefit from our peaceful show today.
Is it peaceful
as
today?
we talk about mental health and continue our series of healing from life's greatest
Because
disappointments.
you are a wackadoo this morning, April. Let's
Well,
talk about
no,
peace
the
and
stress.
mental
We're talking
health.
about what stress does to us. We're talking
Yeah.
about where it stores in our body,
Yep.
how it, kind of jacks all the things
actually,
up.
in addition,
So-
read up on some stuff this morning, so that I would be somewhat prepared today.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Well, good. Did you have any sanity spends this week or anything? We're kind of in work mode until
Oh yeah.
I feel like it's like before
We're
the
pedal
summer
to the
hits,
metal
it's,
right now.
it's kind of get all the things
Get
in,
everything's
but,
done.
yeah.
Well, I did. On Sunday we added to our family.
That's right.
We did.
Who is your new addition?
Yep. Our new addition is a 3-year-old quarter horse gelding named Henry.
Henry the horse.
Henry the horse. He's chestnut. He has a white nose. It's and white. I call them socks, and I know that's not what they're called.
Well,
but
they look like
they look like socks.
Cute.
Yes.
How the donkeys like them.
They don't mind him at all. It's interesting. They'll snip. We haven't let them out in the pasture together
Yeah.
yet, just because. Henry Wren. He's 14 and a half hands, and
Yeah,
he's not
he's
done
big.
growing, and he's nothing but a big old pony. But he's actually like a big old dog. He is the
Aw.
sweetest horse.
So fun.
But they sniff noses like in the barn. through their stall. Like I let the donkeys out to roam and they sniff noses. So, and donkeys, if they're upset and depressed, they don't eat and they have loose poop.
They get the runs.
But mine they're rocking and rolling. Their bowel movements are just
so they're happy.
fine.
They're still happy.
Yeah, they're happy. I think they have a friend at night to talk to. They talk.
Maybe they feel a little safer because he's so big.
Maybe.
He's like their protector.
Well, they've only seen his head.
Yeah.
They see him in the side pasture, but they're little big guys.
Well, and their donkeys are very vibey. So if Henry didn't have a good vibe to him, I think they would try to kick him out.
They're more friendly with Henry than they are my son
going.
And my husband. I'm working on it. Now I just need the miniature cow.
Yeah. And a mini pig.
Dave drew the line on the pig. Yeah, they don't stay mini. That's a joke with pigs.
I know.
They get huge.
I know. Well, that's exciting.
So
that's
our sanity spend.
That's a good sanity spend.
He's precious. I'm excited. I like Henry.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyways, what about you?
No, it's just been all work pretty much.
All work, no play.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to make time to play this weekend since you're leaving me next week.
Yes.
What day do you leave me?
Tuesday.
That's the day they get out of school.
I know.
Yo, I swear.
We get on the road. We leave town like a second.
Extra time here. It's like school's out and we leave.
We gone.
I don't even know why I asked. I should have known.
I know. But hey, it's all right. Well, so today we're going. We spent last show kind of setting up the premise. We had talked about a little bit just of why we're spending some time here on mental health. It's Mental Health Awareness Month for the month of May. Yep. And so we wanted, and we do quite a bit of both counseling participation, and we do quite a bit of helping run it. So we have a counseling office out of our corporate office that we run because we feel that it's super important for people to have good mental health. Every week you read an article about either an athlete or a little kid or a celebrity, or with Naomi Judd in the last couple of weeks, just horrifying, just what stress and trauma, and it can make us so vulnerable and so frail. And, sometimes people don't realize that they have a way out. Yeah. And so they choose, something that's absolutely permanent and horrifying for their families. And we want an alternative, so.
Well, we touched on it last week, and I was reading this great article this morning just about how your emotions get stuck in your body. Like because we tend to, even subconsciously, we're not meaning, we suppress, we move on, and you have to keep on living, I agree, but we suppress those emotions and they get stuck. In this article I read, I loved how this lady said this. She's like, you have issues in your tissues. I was like, that is so true.
That's awesome.
Issues in your tissues. So, but it's true. They get stuck and you store them in different places in your body. Like this isn't just us saying this. You can Google this. It's scientific fact.
Yeah.
In every different area, they can kind of tell you if you're struggling with this, you're probably storing it in your bladder or in your jaw or different areas depending upon the emotion. In different ways, either from a counseling perspective, and then there are other things. This is why we encourage people to look into this. Different exercises or things that you can do, whether it's meditation or stretching or different things, breathing exercises to help also get rid of those emotions that are stored and stuck. But some get so stuck and they've been there for so long that counseling or this form of counseling,
needs more intervention, kind of intentional.
Because your
activities.
Your emotions, she said, which I thought this was also interesting. I thought you would like this. Emotions are energy in motion. And so if it's energy in motion, but they get stuck, what will those stuck emotions do to your body? Because they're still energy, but they're just stuck somewhere. I thought that was
every
a really cool
emotion
way to
has
put
a
that.
frequency. So when you study physics, like everything has a frequency. And so when emotions hit, and actually positive emotions are heavier. So they can actually replace negative emotions quite easily, which is the whole brain science part of it. But each emotion has kind of a frequency, a wave, if you will, that passes through your body. And when it's not properly processed as it's created, then it kind of stores, and we have little piggy banks all over ourselves of what different emotions, and trauma brings a lot of emotion. So which is why traumas tend to be the key focal point. And what can also happen is if you have a trauma in childhood, and you have a similar experience, it doesn't have to be the exact same trauma, but with enough of the specifics that cause you to feel very much like you did that time as a child, those traumas start as connect as a theme. And so they create like a wormhole to your past. And so the reaction of what's happening maybe in your 30s is it feels like out of control and has a lot of meat to it. And most of the time when that happens, people get surprised, like, whoa, like what's under that surface? Because it is linking itself to this. So we talked about last show that your body is like a computer, and it stores, you have a massive hard drive, and it stores every single thing in your subconscious of what you've all experienced, good or bad. And so when new experiences come, your system really goes through its files and says, okay, what do we have to go by on this? Like, how have we reacted before? How did we respond? Was it good? Was it bad? It does all of these different kind of things, searching through those files so quickly. And then the response will often be very similar to the historical response that it has stored. And so, we come out of the gate a blank slate, and then life starts to happen. And all of us out there, have walked different journeys, different paths. And so if you've had a lot of trauma in your childhood and you didn't deal with it then, and that's what that's part of my story is, I was 13 and I was an only child. So after my mom died, it was kind of like, it was pretty lonely. And, my dad did the best that he could, but, we had our challenges. But I didn't deal with it. I kind of took a week off of school, and then life went back to normal, and we didn't talk about it. And it was kind of like deal it on your own. And so I never really took the time to deal with that grief. I tried to just repress it and move on. But it wasn't until I hit my 30s and a trauma, kind of one of my worst fears happened. And when that circumstance dropped, it kind of blew me completely apart, because it wasn't just about that specific thing. It had tied to so many of the painful emotions that I didn't deal with here back at 13. And it put me into a tailspin that, I almost didn't get out of. And it wasn't until I found this type of therapy that we're going to talk about today that it actually worked, because I literally had to think about, okay, every week, like, am I going to commit myself into a mental institution? Am I going to end my life? Or am I going to seek help and be aggressive on seeking help? And I sought help, but it was a desperate search. And, and a lot of people came around me, and I found this type, because I like I said on last show, I didn't have a lot of time. I knew I didn't have a lot of time because I had to deal with stuff, and it had to work. And talk therapy was not what I was looking for, because I'd done that in the past and that wasn't for me. So this kind of hit all those things, because it activates the body, soul, and spirit kind of all in one, and not a new agey way. I think when people start to learn about counseling that works with your spirit, soul, and body, they automatically think of New Age. I was a psychology, religious studies major in college, and I actually had to study New Age quite a bit. And it's so interesting how many people, when you study New Age, they make conclusions that are very erroneous by their observation of ancient medicine. So like Chinese medicine, Indian medicine out of India have done such a phenomenal job for thousands and thousands of years, because they've understood this mind, body, spirit connection longer than any Western kind of medicine. And so their observations are super powerful. When New Age people get a hold of those observations, they try to make it more than it is. They try to make it something, a little bit funky, and instead of just keeping it at the observation level. So when we talk about what we're going to talk through today, and this again, combining, thought field therapy, EMDR, neuro-emotional techniques, it's a lot of the premise of this. And the meridian points are, kind of those junctions in the body where your physical body meets your emotional body. And there's 14 of them. And it's these junction points and observations coming out of Chinese and Indian medicine that have so much historical data. And when you mix it in with the science of physics, and specifically quantum physics, it's amazing why it works. Some people don't care. They just want, like at first, before I learned a lot of this, I just wanted it to work. I didn't care how, what, when, where, why, whatever. Sure. I just needed it to work. And so we'll get to a little bit of not only does it work, but why does it work? So people know that there is an alternative out there. There are several fields of therapy out there that aren't your traditional, well, just tell me, about, like just the talk. Because if you talk about understanding does not bring healing. That's what people think. If I understand it.
Sure. If I can make sense of it.
If I can make sense of it. Because some things have happened to you all, to us, that will never make sense.
Sure.
And will never, never unwind that way. Does understanding parts of it help? Sure.
Yeah.
Naming things help a lot.
It's more about recognition of
and
what
so
problems are. Because we're not bashing talk therapy by any means.
And it's a mix of talk therapy goes on inside these kind of protocols as well. But in my opinion, but based on my experience, it can't just be that.
Well, and I've done both.
Yeah.
So I think, as you have as well, I think this form of therapy has a way of, yes, you recognize, yes, there is talking involved. I don't want people to think we're not like mute. But there is a way of tying in the body with the mind, with the spirit, like that allow you to get to places that maybe you wouldn't even know, you would not have known to identify or recognize.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, it could be the wormhole that connects you back to, age. Maybe it's 7 for somebody. Maybe it's, and you think, oh gosh, okay, I don't need to go back to 7. Well, you think that until you actually begin to recognize through, at least I've seen it through this type of therapy, that my pattern at 42, my theme at 42, through the different ways that you conduct this therapy, you're finding that, oh my gosh, I responded that way at this age. I did this. And it's a theme. And you want to get to the root of those themes and the commonalities between what went on then and what's going on now, and identify those. And it's essentially somewhat clearing it. I don't know a better way to say it.
Absolutely.
Because you're a practitioner, I'm not. I just know the way that, I had an appointment yesterday.
Hey,
so
awesome.
Where you clear something that I know just based on this week alone, I would have never identified that. And no, somebody didn't talk me into it. Nobody told me. It was like I identified it myself through the way that this therapy works. Yeah. And when I was able to recognize, I was like, oh my God, you can't make this stuff up.
And it resonated. Like you had never put those dots together, but once they were put together, you're like, the epiphany comes.
Oh, the epiphany hits.
Of like, now I get it a little bit more. And
it makes sense.
Yeah.
And we alluded to it last week. There is something lighter and more freeing in that moment. It's not a drag you down. Oh my gosh, I'm always just dwelling on the past. Well, you need to talk about the past.
Yeah.
There's something freeing about that moment of identifying something you didn't even realize, and you'll know it when you know it.
Absolutely.
That it's still in there.
Absolutely. And with theme work, what's interesting is it can also shape. It's not so much about the past, but how the past is shaping your view of the future. Totally. So if you have a lot of dread, for instance, regarding your future, there's a lot of why that has to do a lot with the past of why you're building this framework of dread for whatever could come, and no matter what comes, you're just dreading it, and so that's no way to look at the future.
Well, you don't even enjoy the present. Because you're always dread of the
anticipation of what's about to happen. You think it's going to be dreadful and heavy and awful,
and painful.
And we talked a little bit last show as well. Getting your hopes up is hard. Dealing with disappointment is hard. Those are our pain points. Those are our saddest moments. They those wounds hurt. And we tend, especially as adults and kids too, but you just want to cover it up. You just want to, okay, go away. Like, okay, let's move on. Let's just move, But enough wounds add up.
Well, they don't just go away.
They don't go away.
No.
They silence for maybe a little bit. And
you can numb them through various coping mechanisms. You can find ways.
And think of it like an issue with an engine of your car. The check engine light comes on. It doesn't necessarily mean that the car is going to stop working today. But the longer you go and the more systems it's going to impact, your car is going to break down to where you're stuck on the side of the road calling AAA.
And it could have just been the battery, but now it's the battery. And it's I don't know anything about cars, so I'm not going to... Spark plugs. I know those are in there somewhere.
Whatever.
Transmission, that's a good one. But it's true. It will affect more systems, and that's a great analogy. That's
and with our cars, we take them in for oil changes every 5,000 miles. We do all these things for the other parts of our lives, but like our mental health, we don't.
Right.
It's interesting how we always think, well, it should just run on its own. What do you own that runs on its own?
Right.
that doesn't need electricity and maintenance and repair and new parts and all those kind of things.
Even just the fact you feed your body every day.
Yeah.
You know you need to drink water. You need you need to eat food. You know you need to get sleep. You know you have to do things for your body just to function every day.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I mean, but we tend to ignore the mental health piece of it. And I get people get busy, life, but you need to take the time to stop and pay attention to your mental health, because other systems will start to break down. And it is true that different ailments and illnesses will manifest due to, and there are other reasons too, but due to stored and emotions and mental health that you're not addressing.
Absolutely. And you don't want to get to a point, I had a patient a couple months ago, she couldn't leave her house any longer. Like just to leave her house. I mean, when she came to our office, she hadn't left her home in 2 months. And even like her husband was able to get her to therapy. But the process in which to get her there was horrible because she, so many different triggers and fears have just piled up for so long. And the brain can do some funky things. It can convince us of just such false realities that feel so true that our body responds to that false reality. There's even studies that of, people who have passed away, like I remember one study I read with a gentleman being locked in a freezer truck overnight by mistake. And he was so convinced that he was going to freeze to death that he did freeze to death. But what they discovered is the cooler was not even on during the night. So he wasn't freezing physically, but because he had convinced himself of it, he did die in that freezer car. I mean, our minds can do crazy things.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's one of the weirdest stories I've ever heard.
I know.
I mean, I'm just being
honest. It is. But the power of the mind.
That's but I mean, he had to have been not experiencing the cold. I mean, at some point your body's
he was. He had convinced himself he was.
Wow.
Which was such
it's powerful.
Yeah.
It is.
I know. And it can be powerful. So it can be powerful in a positive way. So let's transition a little bit to give kind of I think this is interesting, and I think our audience will find that it's interesting. But when you in these kind of fields of therapy that we're talking about, how it usually starts is
are we gonna name the therapy?
Yeah, we will. Well, there's several, and then we'll go into the specifics of the components. So yeah, so
I know what it is,
the kind of therapy that I practice and that we have both been through. It has a really funny name. It comes from the Greek. It means gut, but it's called Splankna, and no one can ever pronounce it right. Usually in your first few turns, they're like Splankna. So Splankna means gut in Greek, Splankna. So it's kind of like what your gut stores, your gut instincts, your gut, kind of what's in your system.
Okay.
Because when we think about your gut instinct, it's kind of like what do you just sense, just knowing your what I call knowing your knower.
Right.
What is your knower saying? And so what Splankna is that combination of thought field therapy, which brings in the meridian points. So you have all these different pressure points in your body. Meridian points are the same kind of points you go to if you go for acupuncture, where they put needles. It's kind of like your circuitry.
Have you ever done acupuncture?
No,
I can't.
It kind of scares me. Have you guys done
right?
it? No, Ryan. No, Kelly's a yes.
Do you like it, Kel? Really?
My husband, Justin's gotten it before because he had such pain in certain areas, and he's done it before. And it really opened those channels to let things starting to flow again.
Just by stabbing a needle in it?
Well, the needles don't go in very deep, but I don't like needles. So that's why I'm like, no, not for me. But what they're doing in Chinese medicine and Indian medicine, all the commonalities is you have these meridian points, and they're throughout your body. And it's kind of, where your body kind of, your traffic flow of how it processes things, how it gets things out of your body, similar to digestion tract.
Okay.
But this is more from an energy perspective for a physical, emotional connection.
Okay.
So these are where psychosomatic kind of events will happen, and this is how emotions get stuck. So, and meridian points are those points that give practitioners or doctors or whatever, acupuncturists, the knowledge to see what's going on. Where are things stuck? How are they stuck? And how to unstick them. So
by sticking you.
Well, I mean, Justin is my husband's an ex-professional athlete, so he gets just crazy back and shoulder issues sometimes that nothing else will work. And so sometimes we've gone the other, less traditional routes just to say, hey, because we now know why it works. But even before we didn't, just, to say, what can we do to help? Because he's in so much physical pain, he can't move.
Yeah.
So you get desperate. And I talked on last year, I found this kind of therapy because I was desperate.
Yeah.
I needed the unconventional. Most of the people, not so much anymore, but I always have patients that come in that Splankna is faith-based, so, there's some prayer involved too. But I have had some atheists come in my practice many times that have a real hard past with God, but they're so desperate, they will try anything. And as we go through, we find out, why. When did they turn their back on God? When they decided, I'm not going to believe in you anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. Sure. And it just... they're willing to go to places they normally wouldn't because their physical pain is so bad. Physical pain is one of the biggest motivators of change that we have. And so so when we start in a session, there's kind of a couple different sides. There's the healing side and the creative side. We're going to spend the most of the time this show and next just talking about the healing side. And usually it starts with a theme. So like I said, it's something that, someone comes in and they've maybe they know why, everyone knows why they're coming in. So it's usually, their anxiety is kicked up so much that they're having, panic attacks, or the depression's so bad they can't leave their house, or some kind of precipice gets them in. And then we start to chit chat a little bit just to get to know each other. But it's crazy what their body will tell me as a practitioner, that oftentimes, especially like my teenagers who come in who don't really want to talk a lot, but the way that we can access information that's stored, they're like, how do you know that? And I'm like, because your body knows that. And just by the pressure points that we're accessing and what comes to mind when you do that, it's incredible what people are like, that is so accurate. And I would have never put that with this to get what the issue, like what is the main emotion, the central emotion that we're working to clear out, to make people lighter. So with themes, it's usually around an emotion that, and we'll give some examples, but say it's just worry. And so worry will come up, and how it comes up is we do some muscle testing. There's different, and you see a lot of muscle testing in nutritionists nowadays, testing for vitamins, so on and so forth. I would just be cautious. Make sure your person's certified and knows what they're doing, because there are some wackadoos out there. You just want to do your research. But an emotion will indicate through muscle testing, and then it's like, are you trying to reinforce it, resist it, or resolve it yourself? So what happens is when life throws something at us, we try to resolve it in our own strength, right? We try to, okay, I have all this fear and worry. It's causing me panic attacks. What am I going to do? So we start to kind of go through our mental files, being like, man, what, if I think about it nonstop, if I think about it during the night, we do such silly things that don't work. It only increases worry, but then that's how we get kind of knotted up.
Right.
And so we identify the emotion, and then we also identify where it's stuck. So through muscle testing, I can ask, if worry indicates, worry is one of those emotions that's typically stuck in the spleen, pancreas, or stomach. So that comes from the whole research of the neuro-emotional techniques and Chinese and Indian medicine of they've charted all of this of historically and by experience, where do certain emotions store in the body? So with the spleen and pancreas and stomach, emotions like disgust, emotions like over responsibility. So if you're taking someone on that's not your responsibility, it could be like you're overly responsible. Self-consciousness, obsession, egotism, over sympathy. When you're not, like you're almost enabling someone because you're over sympathizing, or you could be taking on their tragedy as your own. hopelessness, apathy, entitlement, feeling out of control, low self-esteem, worry, and distrust. So when you think about, for instance, your stomach. Your stomach, we've talked about, is your second brain. Mm-hmm. Your GI system is a very sensitive system to store emotion. You can understand, like, how many times when kids start to worry, they get stomach aches. Mm-hmm. Well, why? Because there's a direct link to worry storing in the stomach. Mm-hmm. And so we've seen these, we've all seen these, whether we've studied it or not. Mm-hmm. We've always known that, you know, the stomach is very sensitive. And so much so, like, if I've had some patients that they have, you know, they've lost 30 pounds, they don't have an ulcer, they've gotten their whole GI tract completely scoped.
Right.
And there's no cause, but their anxiety is through the roof. And what is their anxiety based upon? Worrying over, like, their kids getting injured, mm-hmm. or their kids dying, or their kid, you know, so it's crazy just what our bodies, mm-hmm. they can't take that toll. And so when, this is how the physics come into it. So say worry indicates, and so we find out where it is stored in the body, and we find out, is this worry about the past? Is it worry about the present, the future? Mm-hmm. Are you worried because your mom was always worried and she kind of transferred her anxiety right. to you? Like, where did it come from? And so the points identify. And so say it's stomach and the future. So this is probably the craziest part of it, but it's backed by science of physics. Is physics is a lot of circuitry plus intention changes things. So in the realm of physics, just your observation of different atoms changes the movement of those atoms. So similar in your body, if you kind of think of like a car battery, mm-hmm. when you're jumping with a car battery with jumper cables, mm-hmm. you kind of have one on each end, and it kind of creates a charge. Yeah. In this type of therapy, you're touching the points where you have emotion stuck, and just the touching of it, so your circuitry, you're mm-hmm. connecting the 2 points, mm-hmm. and you're becoming intention. Like, your intention is thinking about worry. Like, okay, so worry, what is going, it's amazing what will come to your mind yep. because your intention and circuitry is now mm-hmm. connected. It'll be a thought, a memory, a vision, a word, something mm-hmm. that we're building a puzzle, mm-hmm. and something will come, and it might be a memory of, like, when your parents left you at home and you had no idea how to take care of yourself, right. and they were late, and you just started, you know, whatever.
And there was a thunderstorm. And
yes.
the lights went out.
It will shock people what it is mm-hmm. that is the origin of this.
And it'll be something you haven't thought of, or that you would even remember.
Totally.
But it's real.
Yeah.
And it's you talking it out and recognizing, oh my gosh, this just came to my mind. I haven't thought
right.
of this in years. It's not that the practitioner telling you,
right? Because I would never know that you were at home at 5 years old. By what I mean,
what indicated the emotion that indicated linked to study mm-hmm. of what areas, be it the stomach, and that you
absolutely.
And like, I love that you said that intentionally are connecting to. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, that memory or that feeling or that word, because sometimes it is just a word, will come back to you, or that will come up, and it is kind of even in the moment when you're with a practitioner, there is this kind of aha light bulb. You're like, what did I even?
Yeah.
How did that even come?
Yes.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
And again, because it's all relevant. Mm-hmm. How do you know it's working? Because it's relevant. Because mm-hmm. you're like, oh, now I do remember that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's happened to you already. It's not happening to you again by accessing it, but you're accessing kind of your memory bank because you're using things like physics to do it. Mm-hmm. You know, and again, people come into they don't care about the science behind it, but we're kind of trying to give people tips of just, you know, where do emotions store? What can you do about them? What are some different areas where you can find help? And we have it on our website. We're going to spend more time next show. I hope everyone thinks this is interesting. I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah. It's very unconventional, like you said. So some people first hear of it and they're like, that sounds
absolutely.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
If you feel that, if you look this up after the show and you're like, I did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very unconventional approach. But me just being somebody who's done it, I'm not a practitioner.
Yeah.
So I'm just a patient.
Yeah.
This has done, I know I said this last show, this has done more for me in dealing with a lot and processing through a lot and identifying a lot, where I have experienced my own healing in certain areas of my body simply because of this therapy. So even if you read up on it and it sounds crazy,
and even there's components of it like EMDR that's a different, it's a component of this type of therapy that we're talking about, but it's also its own field. So there are EMDR specialists that are only certified in EMDR, and even with veterans, very scientific studies out, a lot of them out there with PTSD, recovering from PTSD and using the eye movement desensitization, and all of those kind of components to help recover from PTSD. So there's a lot of parts of this that have their own fields. Right. So it's all about, this is why we're spending so much time here for a few shows, is to show you there are options out there. You don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to stay heavy. And with anxiety and depression off the charts, especially coming out of COVID, we felt that it really required some time so that people know what's out there, that people know where to find resources. And so where can people find us as we wrap up today?
And if you've tried therapy before and you've done talk therapy and you've been through and just nothing is working, maybe this is something you want to look into and find a practitioner near you that practices it, because why not?
Why not?
It can't hurt.
I always tell people who, again, like I've had all walks of life, people that I don't even know how they find our office, because we don't advertise. We do go on referral only. Right. And they walk in and I'm like, I know this is going to be new because we're bringing in a lot of new things, but give it 3 sessions just to see if it's for you.
Just give it a shot.
And so they do. And even if they never come again because it's too scary or they're not ready yet, because someone has to be ready to be, to heal. Right. But even in 3 sessions, they were able to experience some kind of relief, so from what's been ailing them. So we'll talk about more show, but where can people find us?
CopyTalkPodcast.com, our website. We've got Instagram, CopyTalk Podcast.
I'm
Producer Ryan does not have a mic today.
He doesn't, so you'll have to yell it out.
But he is still in it. What's our hashtag?
Get unstuck.
Get unstuck.
I love it. I did. Well, can we hashtag what was the one we did last week too? I think we should do 2 hashtags.
Yeah.
Because I love that one. Well, what was it?
Taking care of your mentals.
Taking care of your mentals
and hashtag getting unstuck. Right?
I like it.
Love it.
All right. We'll see you next week, everybody.
And YouTube. Subscribe. Thanks.
Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Financial planning services through Lighthouse Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor. Shannon Ross is CEO and managing partner of Lighthouse Financial. Lighthouse and Cambridge are not affiliated.